Okay, I'm selling my Paramount Brown's FI-550. Thought I would do a review on it before it goes. I'm only selling it as I have the FI-1000 over there. I do not have the need for this anymore. I'm also bringing in a CNC lathe, which is going in behind me. So I don't need two manual lathes and a CNC. I've had this for about 3 or 4 years. It's been a great lathe. However, I had to do some modifications on it to make it a great lathe. The chuck, for one, was not concentric when I got it. It was about 0.1 or something out, quite a lot. The tailstock was also not on center. It was high. Now, this is something to note about all Chinese lathes. I don't care what model it is. I don't care where you bought it from. They are all too high. I've gone around and measured a lot of them. Even the FI-1000 behind me, the tailstock is too high. Supposedly, it's because they wear down. And that is a crock. I've had a toolmaker tell me that is a load of BS. If you're thinking your bed is going to wear out, that's not the answer. If you wear a dish in your bed because you're always operating in one area, well, as soon as you go to an area where you haven't worn down, it's going to be high again. You will not evenly wear that bed. It is hardened. That's not going to wear down in 100 years. Would the bottom of the tailstock wear down? It might eventually in a workshop environment, but in a home shop, that's not going to wear down in your lifetime, let me tell you. So the only option is to get the tailstock base ground down. I took this to a toolmaker. I had these two surfaces ground and this vertical surface ground. I got it ground a little bit too low on purpose because I only had one shot at it. If I had the surface grinder on site, I could go back and forth between the two until I got it dead on center. However, since somebody else did it for me, if I brought it back and it was still too high, I can't get it lower. I can't force it down. However, if it's too low, I can shim it back up a little bit at a time until it is dead on center. So that's what I did. Measuring whether your tailstock is on center or not can be quite difficult. Putting a mag base on your chuck and dial gauging around the barrel will not accurately tell you you're on center. These sag. I don't care which mag base you get. If you get a high-end Vertex mag base, they all sag with gravity. Trust me, you have to use something like this if you want to accurately measure without any sag due to gravity. You'll have to make something up like that. Don't go surface grinding this thing until you know that you've got the measurement dead on. And when you do, only take off half as much as what you think. If you've got 0.1 millimeter of total run out around your tailstock, you need to take off 0.05. Very important. If you take off 0.1, you're going to be way too low. So that's the tailstock. Don't expect to do accurate drilling. Go buy a Taiwanese machine which started about 10 grand if you want to be able to do accurate drilling with your tailstock. The head stock, spindle nose was very concentric. However, this chuck, I had to undo the 3 screws on the back here. You can get in there with an Allen key while it's all bolted on the machine. And I just tapped the chuck as I was going around and snugging up the screws until I had it concentric. And I was only able to do that because my particular machine had a little bit of play between the back plate and the chuck. If yours doesn't, you're not going to be able to do that trick. You would probably have to make a new back plate. You would have to turn that back plate face on the machine and then reinstall your chuck. that is the other way to get around it. All these machines are going to be different. So I'm now achieving about 0.015, maybe 0.02 total run out with a ground high-speed steel drill blank in there. And depending on how I chuck this up, I'll get something slightly different. But this is fairly accurate ground stock. So with a little bit of work, you can get them very good. I've put on the quick change tool post. This is the 250-200. It's a bit too big for this machine, but I put it on there anyway. The bigger the better. It's designed to have a 250-100, the 250-000, which is the baby quick change. That is too small for this machine. That belongs on a 7x14 inch lathe, those very small lathes that are out there. If you do choose to put the 250-200 on, because it is too big and you want to use 12mm tooling, you'll need to grind the bottom of the Toolmaster holders so that they sit low enough. Otherwise there's too much meat at the bottom here and they sit too high and you can't get it down onto center because it hits the cross slide. So 2 of these I've ground off for this style of 12mm tooling. You can buy aftermarket ones and they have a little less meat at the bottom here. So you can get the 12mm tooling in there and down onto center without grinding. If you're using boring bars as some of your tooling, then because they are smaller than the 12mm tooling, they will sit low and you won't need to grind the bottom of those ones. So unless you've got a surface grinder or willing to take them to get them surface ground along with your tail stock, best put the 250-100 on there. The original tool post holder sits low, and that's because these aren't precision ground machines to be dead on center with a 12mm tool bit. They're low so that you can use shim stock to bring them up onto center. You'll need to insert 1, 2, 3, sometimes 5 or 6 pieces of shim stock under your tool to bring it up onto center. Again, if you want something that's just going to be able to have a 12mm tool bit put in and be pretty much on center, Taiwanese lathe is what you're looking for. You only get so much accuracy out of a Chinese lathe. It's just the way it is. The chuck key that came with it, spring loaded. It's good for safety. I don't like it. I went and got myself one that I don't have to keep pushing in. This can spring back out on you and fall and damage something. So that's been sitting in the box for quite a while. You will damage your paint. These aren't hard coated with a powder coat or some kind of 2-pack paint. They are an affordable lathe. They've just had a single layer of paint straight onto the body, and when you're getting your spanner in here to take your chuck on and off, you will chip it. It's just a fact of life. A lot of lathes with heavy use have all of the paint missing on the guard at the back there from chips, spraying. You know, you're just going to have to accept the fact that lathes aren't there for show. They're there to be used and to make other parts look good. So this will happen eventually. I made a carriage stop out of aluminium. If you've got a milling machine, easy to do, easy enough. They're great to have. if you're doing repetitive work or you don't want to go beyond a certain depth, that makes it very easy and foolproof. It's a good add-on. Other things to note about this lathe: the speed and direction of the carriage. I can adjust this lathe while it's running, as long as the carriage is unlocked, of course. Never change these dials if your carriage is locked in. But I can change the direction and the speeds while it's running. I've never had a problem with this lathe doing it. However, you are meant to stop the lathe before changing these, and you may need to turn the headstock to give you the ability to change it and then start the lathe again. Just because I've got away with it on this machine doesn't mean you will with yours. However, regardless of what machine you're talking about, you cannot have the carriage locked and change speeds on here. That is just a no-no. One thing, no matter what lathe you buy, is you can't change direction while it's running. You have to stop the machine, wait until this stops, then you can change direction and start it back up again. Emergency stop up here is quite good. I've used that a couple of times because my part has got a little loose and started to whip. It's good to have that close by. Stop the machine, straighten my part back up again, and away you go. The gears in the headstock can be a little fiddly to change if you're thinking of doing threading. Can be done, but changing gears takes a while. It takes a bit of getting used to how to change the gears. So here's the gears. They are meant to have a little bit of play in them. There's meant to be a slight gap between mating gears. You do that by inserting a piece of paper in there when you connect them, and then you roll the piece of paper back out, leaving a little bit of clearance. You don't want them tight. They will rub and make noise and wear out. So a bit of fiddling around to change gears. I don't like doing it. These are the gears that came with the machine, and they went back on there pretty quick and have stayed there. I run this machine at full speed, and with those gears on setting C, I get just the right feed rate to get a good finish when I'm doing the OD of parts. You can use A or B to run it a bit faster to take off material, and then I change to the C setting to get a fine finish. If you're changing the gears to do threading, that carriage will move super quick, and you can't then do a thread and do a slow OD turning automatically because it just moves too fast. You'll need to do that OD turning manually or change the gears back again. It can be a bit fiddly. If you're looking at doing a lot of threads, buy yourself an FI-1000. All you have to do is turn a lever. It's so much easier. Changing the speeds is quite easy. That little nut there takes off the belt tensioner. You can easily change the V-belt between the spindle and the motor, or the spindle and this transmission pulley here to change the speeds. No big deal to do that. If you're changing between doing, say, aluminium or plastics to cast iron and doing a large diameter piece like a back plate, you can change that speed fairly pain-free. One of the back plates I made for my 6-inch Vertex chuck, cast iron, you have to run that very slow. If you try running cast iron or steel, especially a large diameter, very quick, your tooltip is going to burn out and disintegrate, and you don't get nice chips coming off. The thing just tends to scream and rub and not cut. So that's a bit about gears and speeds on this. What else can we talk about? Lead screw cover is very nice to have, stops chips getting stuck in there. I quite like that it's got that on there. This is a little thread turning setup that I've got here. I can put in this adapter I made out of aluminium and slide in this second tool holder, mainly putting in M5, M6 taps, and I can do power threading. I will hold this and thread in to a cylinder, stop the machine, reverse it, hold on to that, and back it out again. I'll let the tailstock slide, and if anything stops or jams up, you can just let go and this will freely spin with the headstock. Get it with the stand. It's worth the money. I can't imagine not having the stand. It wouldn't be worth the money you save, honestly. Getting it home was quite easy. I put it on my single axle trailer. It only weighs 180 kilos plus a stand another 30. And installation, 1 ton, block and tackle, $70 from the hardware store. And I put a 50mm fence post over my C200 columns there. If you're worried it's not strong enough, put 2 of them there, or put a 60mm post there. I put my sling around this webbing here. That's the center of gravity, and lifted it up from that point. You can adjust your carriage left and right to balance it out. Keep it level while it's being lifted. I lifted this one up, put the stand underneath and lowered it back down, bolted it into place. You can move it with the stand once the stand is bolted to the machine. I have done that once, where I lift the machine and the stand together and moved it slightly and put it back again. As this machine's for sale, I've got some accessories here which are going with it. Some which came with the machine, travelling steady, your set of change gears, the original tool post holder with the key and the locking mechanism, the toolbox, lathe dog, nuts and bolts, spanners. That is for changing the gears. This one here will unscrew slightly to loosen it off, and this whole mechanism swings out so you can change gears. I'll give you a tip: once you swing it out, lock it back in again, otherwise this whole thing can fall down. That's a tip for the first time you change gears. Also comes with a dead center, tailstock and headstock centers. The chuck comes with reverse jaws. Don't throw your box away with your reverse jaws still in the box. They are hidden in the foam. If you open your box upside down, you won't know they're in there. Make sure you get those out. That's about all for what came with the machine. Some of the accessories you will need when you get the machine home. Obviously a tailstock, drill chuck and arbor. The Vertex one here, like I said, I think it's about $80–90, plus the arbor, another $20. You need to factor in the price of one of those. You'll need tooling. I bought some of this tooling from Paramount just to get me started. It's 8mm tooling. It cuts a few chips, but there's no profile to the tips. They don't have rake on them. They don't have chip breakers or anything like that, which you get with index tooling. So I very quickly went away from those to the index tooling here, which I ordered off of the internet. That will start adding up. Once you order a set of boring bars, you order a set of standard left and right hand tooling, threaded tooling. Then you have to buy boxes of inserts. I'm supplying aluminium inserts along with standard inserts when this machine goes. Also got a blank MT2 arbor for the tailstock. Back plate that I made for a 4-jaw chuck. There is also the back plate for the 6-inch chuck, which I made. MT4 to MT2 reducing sleeve for the headstock. Center drills, you'll need those if you want to do any kind of accurate drilling with a tailstock. If you don't center drill first, your drill bit will wander and it won't drill on center. So a small and a large one of those is pretty much a must-have. You'll need shim stock. You'll need to go buy yourself some of that. That's going to cost you money. Other shims, larger shims for lifting up your tools. I've got various other high-speed steel tools here. That's about it. Oh, a dial gauge indicator. You're probably going to have to factor that in as an accessory. You pretty much can't operate without getting a dial gauge and a magnetic base for indicating things and knowing where you're at. Also a 4-jaw is a nice upgrade if you do need absolutely perfect concentricity. You'll need a 4-jaw and you'll need to make a new back plate to get a 4-jaw on here. This comes with 3 screws to attach it to the back plate. The 4-jaw comes with 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've also made this back plate so that it can accommodate a 3-jaw with 3 screws. 1, 2, 3 versus the 4 screws for a 4-jaw. That is probably about it. Video's starting to get a bit long now, so I'll probably cut it short. If you've got any questions, shoot them to me in the comments. I'll see if I can answer them for you. Thanks for watching.